Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. Well, I want to share with you a dream that I have, and it's certainly not a Martin Luther King type of dream, but it's a dream of a business consultant serving engineers and other technical professionals. And what that dream is that negotiating is embraced by you and by your firms so that you are better prepared in order to address the various different challenges that you obtain from your clients, from your suppliers, and from others. How can you do this more adeptly, do it more enjoyably, and make certain that you build stronger relationships, deeper relationships, and at the same time obtain what you deserve? I think many times people feel like that is an either or instead of a both and. And I think it can be done, and I want to share with you some stories and some principles, core values that I think will enable each of you to do it. If I can do it, Laura says she enjoys it, I enjoy it too. It's interesting, yesterday we went through lots of sessions, especially in the afternoon, but really to me it all got back to negotiating principles. And now we're going to be talking more about it, specifically focusing into negotiation tactics. When I say that, I'm going to be dealing mainly from the professional side of things today. But from the personal side of things, negotiations is just as important. If you were comfortable negotiating and doing it both professionally and personally, you would have a wholer life. And like Val talked about yesterday afternoon, as Dr. Rai talked about with various different things, I think we can do that, become more comfortable, and have deeper relationships and obtain more of what we deserve. So let's move forward. When and where do negotiations occur? Everywhere. So many times I hear technical professionals especially say, Lee, I'm not going to be a used car salesman. I just as soon not do the job as to bend down to that low of a level. Nobody is asking you to go there. This isn't about used car sales. This is about being the ultimate professional and obtaining everything that you truly deserve. And when you look at the various different things that we get involved with, we're constantly negotiating things. I think you being senior people, you probably didn't have to negotiate to come here. Some of you probably did. Many times when I get involved in doing training sessions, I always start the session by saying, I would dare say that each of you had to negotiate to come to this session. Some of you lost, some of you won. Now, when we look at various different things here, we're looking at hiring, we're looking at scopes of work, project staffing, scheduling, budgeting, costs incurred, changes, payment terms, subcontractor agreements, rework, overruns, disputes, promotions, even performance reviews are a negotiation. Are we prepared, are people prepared to do it in a professional, positive type of manner? Now, as I go through this, everything that I discussed today, I'd like you to think about how does it meet the needs of all three of these parties? This should be a positive outcome, conclusion for your employees, for your clients, and for the profitability of your firm. If any one of these benefit too much, more than the others, chances are the other two will be hurt. I've seen various firms that it's all about clients. So we do things with clients possibly we should handle differently. Our employees are hurt and the profitability of our firm is hurt. Now, of course, we couldn't go the opposite way. We can't only look after profitability and have it all be about profit. If that's the case, then our clients and our employees will be hurt too. But we have to have that balance. And let's think about any decision that we're making, any negotiation that we're doing. How do we do that in a balanced type of way? The positive nature, I think, of negotiations is many times overlooked. I think I just skipped a slide here. Well, there is a slide that's not in here, and I want to contrast some approaches before we go into the positive nature. In contrasting approaches, let's look at business development, marketing, and the proposal effort. How do we as firms support that effort? Many times whenever a proposal comes in the door, we are going to put our best foot forward, especially once we've made the go, no-go type of decision process. Many times it's money, time is not going to be a constraining factor at all. If we're going to go after this, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. We're going to have the best people, and if we have interviews involved, we're going to sometimes go through dry runs, sometimes have a red team review what the team has done. Then they go out, and many times they win. What happens when they come back? There is a firestorm that goes throughout the office. We just won this job. Everybody feels excited about it. Many times a memo goes out congratulating the team that were the instrumental parties of winning this job. There's sometimes even a party at the local restaurant or local bar celebrating what has been done. All appropriate, the lifeblood of our organization. How does that compare to how you handle negotiating? How about if you're challenged on a technical issue? If a technical issue comes up and you're challenged, I many times see you engage very assertively, very appropriately, very professionally. You even take younger people with you to say, this is how you would handle it if you're ever challenged regarding that. Do it very positively, very appropriately. You are naturally negotiating when you're getting involved with a technical issue. Now, let's look at something as simple as a picnic or a Christmas party. The planning, the preparation that goes into that. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, and we're going to make certain that it goes off the way it should. Now, how do you as an organization support the negotiation process? Is it at all comparable? What I have found sometimes is the unspoken or spoken word is, we won the job, don't screw it up now. So as the people go out the door, do they have your support? Do they have the processes and systems set up such that they can pull out something and say, this is how we're going to handle and make certain that the negotiation is done appropriately? I find in most organizations, it doesn't exist. Now, why? Why is that we don't commit to that? I think many times we feel we'll lose if we engage in negotiating. So I'm not going to engage in negotiating. And if I do, it's only going to be because I have to, not because I believe that I will benefit or anybody else will. Well, I believe the positive nature of negotiation is completely forgotten about when we're doing this. Many times when we've won work, and let's think about especially from the indefinite order delivery contract, we now have a hunting license for $50 million worth of work, let's say as an example. But the scope hasn't been addressed yet so that we can do quality work. Pricing hasn't been addressed so that we assure that we make profit on the job. Contract terms haven't been addressed in order to make certain we protect our firm. Changes have not been addressed at all in order to make certain we meet all the needs of our client. All of those things need to be done and be done successfully in order to make certain that we meet the needs of our client and our employees and the profitability of our firm. Now, let's say a successful negotiation is completed. The negotiation team comes back and is successful. How many of you put out a memo congratulating the negotiating team? Is there a firestorm going through the hallways about how good of a job the negotiating team did in protecting us, in pricing so that we make money, et cetera, et cetera? I find often the case is no. Nothing is done regarding that. I think that that's not embracing negotiating in such a fashion that we make certain that all of our people, all of our parties that we're dealing with are treated appropriately and fairly. We fight commoditization. Are we truly fighting commoditization when we don't engage in positive negotiating? I think that should be part of how we are armed to fight commoditization. 3 approaches that I typically find in negotiating. Now we're going to get into some examples of how to be more positive and how to do this in a very professional way with professional services firms. The one way shown here is the giveaway type of approach. That giveaway approach is typically, if I give you something, you will like me, won't you? If I give you something more, you'll even like me more, will you not? That is so many times what the technical professionals, not only engineers, but accountants, management consultants, others use as a style. Now, another style that's almost the opposite of that is the adversarial style. And that is the hard-nosed attorney that says, it's my way or it's the highway. Now, labor unions are known for that too. I'll shut your whole plant down if you don't give me what I want. Ultimate adversarial role is the terrorist. The terrorist says, if you don't do what I want, I'll kill you. As a matter of fact, if you don't do what I want you to, I'll kill myself. The ultimate adversarial negotiation approach. I don't think either one of these is, of course, the appropriate approach for the professional services firm. I believe the win-win approach is the only way in order to work with it. And some people criticize win-win by saying you can't always have that occur. I think you can have it occur many, and most every time if you do it in a principled type of way. And we're going to go through that. The key with win-win is we're hard on the problem, we're soft on people. We're going to make certain that we tackle that problem, and any issues that come up are about the problem and about resolving what the issues are, and has little to do with the people. We are just trying to get to what's for the greater good of all involved. Now, I've developed 10 tenets that come from the Win-Win Negotiating book, Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury. If you haven't read a book on negotiating, it is well worth the time. It's probably 30 plus years old, and I still think it's the best book out there. It's an easy book to read, it's a fun book to read, and they go through lots of examples too. And this 10, I believe in it so much, I developed 10 tenets to make certain that, do I have it in my heart? Am I able to walk this walk and talk this talk in a way that is consistent and meets my needs and whoever else it is that I'm working with? And I'm doing it in a principled core value way. Now, the first one is, ask or you shall not receive. In negotiating, the tendency is for each party to step back and to look after their own position. You have to be able to ask to obtain what it is you deserve. I think of a situation where we were working with a large oil and gas firm, and they had selected us as being one of 3 firms to do environmental remediation work for them. They brought the 3 of us together, discussed things, and in short, what came out of that from a contractual perspective is, each one of you need to provide us with what you think the contract terms are that's appropriate for the work that you're going to be doing. But we're going to do one combined contract, and each one of you need to sign this contract. And then ratably, the work will be given to you as we dictate who is most appropriate. But we'd like to have it pretty much be a balanced type of use of each one of your talents. So we did that. We then got the contract back. When I received the contract, I noticed that there was no risk allocation or limit of liability provision in the contract. We had put one in. I was shocked by that not being there. I then called the party that was working for the oil company, and they said, well, you were the only one in order to request that. Oh, I took a deep breath, because the 2 firms that were with us believe in the professional societies. One was actually a member of this professional society too, and it was like, I can't believe neither one of these other firms with the type of risk work we have here did not do that. Now, I also knew our firm would make a business decision if I went to the appropriate people and say, if the other 2 parties aren't going to do that, then we will go forward too without that. But I looked at this tenet and I said, ask or you will not receive. So what did I do? I said, may I discuss with you why I placed that clause in there and why I think it will benefit you in the long run and will also only be fair for me and the other 2 consulting firms. Now, without getting into the pros and cons of limited liability, I went through that with him. There was silence on the other end of the phone. I stepped back too and let the silence sit there. And he finally said, you know, I can't disagree with you. I am going to put that back in there, and I'm going to send it out to the other 2 parties, and I'm sure that they will accept it, don't you think, Lee? Yes, I think they will. Now, if I had not asked, I would not have received. The other 2 firms were pretty sheepish the next time we got together regarding that. Now, I'm just going to step back a little bit. One other thing. How many of you would have liked to have gone to the World Series last night? Did anybody ask or try to negotiate for tickets? I know one person that did. He met a person at a bar that he did not even know. And what did he do? He asked if the guy had World Series tickets. The person said, well, I might have some extra ones. And he gave them to him at face value. Ask Ken Johnson. Ken Johnson and his significant other was at the game last night at $125 a ticket. Never stop negotiating and searching for alternatives. I have a management consultant friend that always says in every proposal he wants to put 3 different alternatives in. One is the lowest, the minimum that needs to be done. One is the one that is most appropriate, and the third brings value. But not all of this stuff needs to be done. His point is, I naturally let negotiations occur. Instead of just having one and having it be focused on that one item and always doing things there, many times they will always almost take the second item. But sometimes it's amazing how many times they take the third item. But I'm providing them options and alternatives, and it almost naturally lets negotiations occur, and they're the ones making the decision instead of me providing one and them immediately pushing back. I think that's a great way to describe that you're building negotiation principles in even your proposal process. Now, another situation that I got involved with was a software conversion for a firm that was a 50-person firm growing to be a 100-person firm. They were hiring people that were uncomfortable with working with the QuickBooks system, so they wanted to get a different software system. Well, to make a long story short, we decided on the software system. I got off the phone with the client, and the client said, Lee, you work with them on getting everything taken care of regarding terms and conditions, pricing, et cetera, et cetera. I was looking forward to that. A half hour later, I get a call back from the client again saying, oh, I just got a call from the software provider, and they asked if we'd made a decision yet. And I told them we had. We're going with them. I'm like, excuse me? Yeah, we're going to go with them. We made the decision, didn't we? Well, I know we did, but did we talk about timing? Did we talk about pricing? Did we talk about all that? Oh, I didn't think about that. I was excited about going ahead and getting them on board. Well, I'd worked with another party approximately a year before, and I knew that I felt like I could get probably a significant discount off of that pricing. But now it was like my knees were cut out from underneath me. But they never stopped negotiating. I picked up the phone immediately, talked to the service provider, and said, since we aren't negotiating any type of the price, we haven't talked about training, I know training will be in there, you have $200 an hour for training, I'd like to ask you to discount your rate by $50 for that training, since I know there's fat in the total price that you have here for the total price. And he was quiet, and he said, okay, I'll do that. I'm going to send something out to you overnight, and I'll have that in there and the total pricing, et cetera. I got it the next day. You can't believe how I squirmed in knowing that my client could be paying 40% more than what I was able to do for somebody else a year ago. So, but I was undermined. How could I do this? I thought of this tenant, picked up the phone and said, Joe, help me out here. I'm struggling with this. You know you worked with me a year ago on a project, and you gave me a 40% discount off of your original price that came through. Well, I can't do that anymore. That was different economic times. That's completely different. There's no way I could go that route. Lee, that's completely unreasonable. Okay, I understand. What could you do for me? Is there anything more you could do for me? I just feel guilty even representing my client and not asking this question. Silence. I was silent too. He said, Lee, can you, after a while, can you get this contract signed at the end? Yes. By the end of the month? Yes, I can. So what I said, he said, I'll give you a 25% discount then if you go ahead and get this signed by the end of the month. I don't have my quota now, and if I get my quota, I'll be happy, my company will be happy, and it'll be a win-win situation. Will this work? Well, that 25% plus the $5,000 that I saved on the training more than paid for my fees. Now, if I hadn't believed in this tenant, I would have never gone back because my client was completely happy with this. Now, I asked the client before I did this to say, could you give me some freedom just to go back and see if I could get more? Do you think they were elated? Absolutely. Ask questions instead of making statements. This is so key. We had Joe talk about this, Dr. Rye, yesterday. And ask open-ended questions. You are not out to impress in a negotiation. What you are there to do is to get information. Ask open-ended questions. Worked with an attorney many times that I thought was absolutely the greatest at doing this. When we became involved with indemnity, when we were talking about various different things like limit of liability, standard of care, and we were dealing with an attorney on the other side, many times the attorney wanted to have another attorney to work with, so we brought him in. Was it easy? No, it many times wasn't, but he was wonderful at asking the right questions. Some of those questions was, why is that reasonable? Why should I do that? Would you do that? If you would, why? I don't understand. You gotta share more of this with me. He did it so beautifully, and it drew the person out, and then many times we were able to bridge the gap. I think about asking questions instead of making statements. Be prepared to give away something. Getting ahead of myself here. Ask questions is the one, instead of making statements. Be prepared to give up something. Oh, this is so hard for people, especially I hear from the technical professional. Lee, I gave the best price I possibly could. I can't lower my price. What's the individual forgetting when they say that? Doesn't scope relate to price? If scope is decreased, shouldn't price decrease? But they'll never decrease their scope. They want both. That's what negotiations is all about. I've got to keep moving here, but I'd love to be able to share with you more. And I do have some CDs out there that really is like an hour long that goes through each one of these much more, and you're welcome to grab some. I put them out there on the ASFE desk, so if I don't forget about that right now. But here, what I remember having two clients. One client proposed $200,000 on a project and lost to another client that won for $30,000. Oh, what do you think the client that bid or proposed $200,000 thought? I can't believe this firm. How unethical. They belong to the same professional societies, et cetera. Well, I had the fortune of finding out more about both of them without either one knowing that I knew about the other. And what had happened with the $30,000 one is they found out that the client only had a $30,000 budget, and that they wouldn't be able to get the other $170,000. They both thought it'd be about $200,000, but they wouldn't be able to get the other $170,000 until the next year. So they asked the question, if we put together a scope of work for $30,000 for you for this year, will that help you? Can we then get started on the project immediately without waiting until next year in order to get the other $170,000? Absolutely. But I can't guarantee you the other $170,000. I can only guarantee you the $30,000. We can live with that. Well, we've worked with you. And they worked with that. At the end of the project, what did they do the project for? About $200,000. Now, who was right? I'm saying from a negotiation perspective, who won the work? They still did quality work, and they did it at $200,000. I think there's a lot that can be learned from that. Next one is control your emotions. Key point here is control. There is a place for emotions in negotiations, and never ever suppress emotions. Emotions have a place, but you're in control of them. The other party is not. I always remember, and I'll remember it as long as I live, and this goes back a few years, but I remember where we were $200,000 over budget. I saw it aging, got with the project manager. Project manager said, we're dealing with 4 attorneys. They're dealing with the client. No problem, Lee. You know how that takes. About a week later, I got a call back saying the attorneys are denying that this $200,000 additional work will be paid for. So, long story short, we got together with them, sat down. After about 2 hours, we weren't making any progress at all. I finally leaned forward to the lead attorney and said, you know, we would like to be treated fairly. We'd like to be treated reasonably. We would like to get this done in a fashion that fits for both of us. He said, Mr. James, let me make perfectly clear. This is not about fair or reasonable. We are going to get whatever we can for our client, and you need to accept that. My blood pressure rises just by me sharing that with you today, and this was years ago. I saw the project manager out of the corner of my desk, darn near wanting to jump all over the table and do a Latrell Sprewell on that guy. Well, my office manager was sitting right there too, hadn't said a word. We said, we understand we're not progressing as we'd like to. Let's continue if we could, but could we caucus for a few minutes? So we went into a conference room. Russ was just going crazy, the project manager. The office manager went over into the corner, pulled up a chair, took out a billfold, out of the flap of a pocket, took out a pill and put it under his tongue and took a deep breath. I'm like, Dick, are you okay? And he's like, oh man, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. And so should we call 911? And now this is spooky too, but he said, oh no, this happens a lot. Don't worry about it. So everything worked out fine. We got back into there. We put together a plan. Were we emotionless when we came back into that meeting? No, you could have cut the tension with a knife. Absolutely, we had emotion. We explained the fact that we knew exactly what had gone on and we were not going to be used and taken advantage of regarding this. And we were going to work assertively in order to be treated fairly, and we expected to be treated fairly because this project manager did exactly what he needed to do, and he's got a 2-inch stack of stuff showing he had and that he communicated to you. And because you're taking that stand right now to protect yourself, et cetera, et cetera. What happened? We ended up getting 180 of the 200. Of course, we had to write off some, but we felt very good about that. A year later, I'm at a cocktail party. That attorney that had leaned forward and said that came up to me, and you'd never ever know anything like that had gone on. He was trying to represent his client appropriately as he knew I was trying to represent my company appropriately. That is what negotiation is about. We obtained what we deserved, and I think they feel they obtained what they deserved. That's the type of win-win that I think we need to constantly think about. Now, don't set firm deadlines. Set deadlines, but not firm deadlines. Attorneys, I've got a litigation attorney that I work with sometimes on doing a training session. This drives him crazy. And I said, well, you're a litigation attorney. Of course it drives you crazy. You love deadlines. But the key word here is firm. Set deadlines. 80% of what will occur as far as progress will occur at the last 20% of the time. But don't set firm deadlines. And I don't have time to go through, but I could go, and on that CD, there's an example of where literally a person called up and told me, I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks. If I had not known that, and I was going on vacation that same time, and I didn't tell the individual, if I had not known that, I know I would not have been able to negotiate the deal I was able to negotiate. Did I take advantage of it? No, I didn't take advantage of it. I took advantage of the deadline, but I didn't take advantage of the party. I still did something that was fair and reasonable to them, and he knew it, and was fair and reasonable to us. So again, don't set firm deadlines, but set deadlines. It will help move things forward. Wrong one. Be prepared and able to walk away. If you can't walk away from a negotiation, you shouldn't be at the negotiation table. If you walk away, there's nothing acrimonious that needs to occur. You can be completely professional. You can be completely above board. Explain to the people why it is that you can't come to an agreement. We literally have had so many different cases. I remember one time where we were doing hazardous waste cleanup in an urban area, and we could not get a limit of liability, we could not get a negligence trigger, we could not get a standard of care that made sense. They told us we won't go with it unless you do. We said, fine, we can't do this. As much as we want to do the work, we'd love to, but if you find that the project doesn't go the way you think we are the firm that's the most eminently qualified to do that. And with all due respect, we believe you are going to struggle with the firm that you've selected. 2 years later, they came back to us. We started going through this. We went through everything. Was it an easy negotiation? Absolutely not. It was still tough. But we stood by our values, and 2 years later, we put a deal together again. And we did have a limit of liability. We had a negligence trigger, and we had a standard of care that appropriately considered those factors. Sometimes you have to walk away. Now, I don't have time again on that CD. There is something about that, but I can share examples of where we weren't able to walk away and when we should have walked away, and the price that we paid was unbelievable. And you probably all have cases like that too. Silence is golden. In negotiations, silence, I've already used various different examples. It is golden. It is one of the most professional things you can do, especially once you've said the price is, don't say anything after that. Nothing. Because you'll only be undermining your position. Have a pad of paper, be writing on it, do whatever you can in order to hide behind that silence. But some people go as far as to say whoever speaks first loses. I don't necessarily agree with that. But you can look at the person, you can do various things. Seconds will feel like minutes, minutes will feel like hours. But you've got to work on this. And if you're ever in a group where somebody starts to talk once you want silence, you got to take time out, caucus, get them out in the hallway or whatever and tell them to shut up. I can't have this. We're working like this. We have to work together. I need your silence in order to get my point across. It's a huge negotiation tool. Dumb is smart and smart is dumb. This is one that drives professionals crazy. I always want to read an expert, somebody other than a professor. G. Richard Schell, Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. I think the single most important attribute of a great negotiator is the willingness to be ignorant or assume the role of ignorance. Ask questions. I can't stress that enough. Herb Cohen, if you ever hear him coming to your area, go hear him speak. He's wonderful. He loves to tell stories about the person he hates negotiating with and the one he loves negotiating with. Who he loves negotiating with is the New York attorney that has the tie that costs more than every suit he has in his closet. And that attorney will stand up and just eloquently destroy every position he has. And he says, you know what you say back to them once they've done that? Huh? That attorney will be so ruffled they won't know what to do. They will duplicate the same thing and completely destroy your position. And to gain approach again with them, huh? They won't know what to do. Now he says, okay, if you don't feel comfortable about that, say, I don't understand. Could you explain that again to me? And you look at the politicians. Look at all these politicians, the people from the IRS and all that. What did they come before the congressional group and say? I don't remember. I don't recall. I don't know. It's all a sophisticated, huh? They're negotiating their position. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with that, don't do that. But take the position of, and many times when my mind goes brain dead in a negotiation, I've heard exactly what the person says, and I know exactly what they mean, but what do I say? Would you explain that again? I'm not certain I follow. It gives me some time to get back into the game again. I'm not there. I'm not prepared to respond. And I want to do it professionally, though, to let them know that I'm still in it and I didn't go brain dead. Don't take this literally, but take it figuratively. You're not out to impress. And if you do this appropriately, you'll be surprised. Herb Cohen loves to always say again, and the person he hates to negotiate with is the Iowa farmer. Because the Iowa farmer comes in, acts as dumb as a fox. Says, Herb Cohen, nationally known negotiator. Here, Herb, I'll write out a check. How much you want me to write the check for? You're going to get all my money anyhow. And he says, 10 minutes into the process, they've got everything that I have to give. I don't have a chance against them. I refuse to even negotiate with Iowa farmers anymore. Now, again, when we look at this, don't take it literally, but take it figuratively. And there's a lot to be said for this. Herb Cohen, he loves to say too, I always try to be just a little bit dumber than the other party. And, you don't know how hard that is. He says that. Everything is negotiable. That's the last part. Never, never, ever think anything else. Everything is negotiable. Believe it. And I can't stress that enough. And I always think of when a firm won a $30 million contract, 200-person firm, we had a pay-when-paid clause. They went to the bank. They were going to ramp up to an additional 100 people. Be at 300 people, start billing $500,000 a month. They were going to ramp up almost immediately within 2 months of that. They thought, pay when paid, it could be 6 months out by the time they got paid. That would be additional $3 million of financing. Went to the bank. What did the bank say? Can't do it. Can't do it. I'm sorry. So I got involved and we said, well, let's get rid of the pay when paid provision. Everybody said, you can't do that. There's no way you can do that. This is not going to work. It was qualification-based selection. The firm was selected. We sat down. We went through various different things with them in order to get this done. In the end, it took a few meetings, but a $30 million contract over 5 years, starting a whole new line of business for this company. We were able to get invoicing to occur every 2 weeks and payment within 10 days. That went on for 5 years with them and was very successful for them. And now they continue to work with the same team going from place to place, and now they've gone to 30 days with payment within 15 days. Billing every 30 days. Again, everything is negotiable. I wish I had a tape recorder at the end of the session. I asked, because we had the COO, the CFO, myself in there, I took the liberty of saying, how did this work for you? For us, this helped us a lot to really understand what your needs are. We think we'll be able to better meet all your needs on the project than we would have if we had not done this. Do you feel similarly? They were magnanimous, absolutely. We want to applaud you for investing in our project. We know you better than any other supplier that we have. We know better how to work with you. We have a deeper relationship with you than we did before, and we very much appreciate that. I wish every one of you could have heard that from the client side of the table. And it was just absolutely everything I think that you can experience if you walk this talk, as we have talked about, in a principled way. Now, I'm going to rush through this because I know I'm running out of time. Be principled, core valued, prepare and plan. The best prepared, the person that plans the most is going to win. That doesn't mean you have to have a cost and benefit relationship there, but plan, just like you do when you go out for a proposal, for a marketing effort. Take the time to plan. The person that is planned is the person that's going to win most of the time. Do it. Practice, practice, practice. If you think you're good and you know a teenager, negotiate with a teenager. They'll clean your clock. And you will learn something about that, about how I become a better negotiator. But practice, practice, practice. When you go to a store, you're buying a tie, ask for a 20% discount. Or what can you give me for a discount? If they look at you like you're brain dead, what do you got to lose? You just learned something. Be yourself. I have a style. My style is more of a passionate style than some people feel comfortable with. That's my personality. Do it that fits with your personality, but use these same principles, these same core values, and you will be successful, and you'll obtain more of what you deserve, and you'll build stronger relationships. I want to urge you to embrace negotiating. I want to urge you to have yourself and others get trained in this so that you more frequently obtain what you deserve, and your clients will love you for it. You'll have stronger relationships, and each one of these parties are going to benefit significantly. Questions? Yes?
More like a comment. We just recently had a client that wanted something done in 4 weeks, and they wanted a low price. The way we attacked it was more like, well, we think it's a 6-week job, but to get it done in 4 weeks, we'll have to work some overtime and so forth, so it'll be a higher price. And they wound up paying the higher price for the quicker.
Yeah. Many times it's just a matter of asking. Asking and you will receive. And if you don't receive all of what you want, you're going to receive more than if you didn't ask. Laura.
Could you expand a little bit more on do not set firm deadlines? I didn't quite understand.
Don't set a firm deadline. What happened here is the person said, I have to get this $4.3 million change, which we had generally agreed with, done with, and what we wanted was a limit of liability, and I have to have it done by this date. I'm going on a vacation. Well, I was able, since I knew that was the case, I was able to do everything I could in order to wait till the last minute. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, his time, is when we got everything agreed to. And it fit perfectly with what I needed, but I knew I was still treating him fairly. There was $7 million to start with. We went down to 4.3. And we were being treated fairly, and they were being treated fairly. He knew it too, but were they being tough? And part of the reason they were being tough is he had 3 other people that were there. But he shared with me his firm deadline. So I always say, set not a firm deadline, but a flexible deadline, because then 80% will always occur in the last 20% as far as progress. But don't paint yourself in a corner. It'll work against you. Andy.
Lee, what was repeat again, the reference book you mentioned earlier?
The book, Getting to Yes, by Roger Fisher and William Uray. It's an old book. You'll get it on Amazon, you'll find it, and it's a great book. It's well worth your time, and buy it for every one of your people. Yes, sir.
Other than just asking directly, one thing we've had some issues with sometimes with negotiations is that we're going into the meeting with the assumption that the person that we're dealing with has the authority to make the final decision, go through the process, we reach a resolution, only to find there's a man behind the curtain that we don't know about, and then everything kind of gets taken back.
The first question before you ever start negotiating is, do you have the authority to commit your firm? And then you say, I have the authority to commit my firm. Do you have the authority to commit your firm? If the person says no, then you're at a crossroads. Do I move forward? And possibly the answer is no, because I don't want to play out all my cards and then have them go back and then say, well, we don't have any authority. Now we know the whole story, etc. You may want to step back and say, well, why don't you bring your decision maker back in here? We'll have a meeting 2 days from now, next week, whatever the case is. Don't be undressed without getting that done. One of the first questions you always do, and when I do mock negotiations in the training sessions, everybody forgets that. Do you have the authority to commit your firm? You always have to ask that question.
Gene, no, I have to speak with the general sales manager.
More of a comment than a question, and I love that you said this, ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be opened, and you can keep going down scripture roads if you want. But we have a messaging session that we do, and this is more of a short list, presentation, prepare, have a message, but at the end, I call it the will you marry me question. After everything you've heard today, and you kind of have to feel out the situation, and after you've gone through your question and answers, you have one last question to ask at your panel. After everything you've heard and we've presented here today, do you have any reservations on engaging our firm? And it seems like a bold question, you guys, but I've had more, actually, no, we don't, and would you get me a fee schedule this afternoon? And you walk out of there hitting a home run. So not a darn thing wrong with it, man.
And if you get a negative response to some question like that, you need to know that negative response anyhow. You want to know it, so ask the questions. If they're going to tell you something bad that you don't want to hear, it's better today than tomorrow or the next day. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.